Puedes subir el volumen, Rafi, porfa.
I don't know how to.
¿En la computadora? Well, good evening to all of you, and welcome to an awesome evening. I am Dr. Vanessa Jackson, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Soreyda Benedit-Begley, excuse me, originally from Honduras. Soreyda is a fashion designer, a radio host, activist, and community organizer. As you will hear today, she started her career in the fashion industry when she was 14 years old, working in a sweatshop. Since moving to Lexington over 20 years ago, she has been very involved with the local arts and culture scene. Soreyda has served on the board of several local and state organizations and has received many awards for her work as a fashion designer and activist. She is also the mother of three amazing children, Bella, William, and Aaron. And last but certainly not least, I'd like our attendees to know that today is Soreyda's birthday. So we are especially grateful that she is taking time out of her special day to be with us and share her experiences. Soreyda, thank you, and the floor is yours.
I think we will have the video that said is going to play.
In Honduras to an award winning fashion designer in Kentucky. As a teenager, Soreyda helped support her family by working in a sweatshop, earning just $30 for a 70-hour work week. Her dreams of fashion felt far away. After leaving Honduras, she immigrated to Lexington, Kentucky. At 33 years old, with three young kids, she turned back to her first love, fashion. Soreyda started making clothes for friends. The word spread. Soon, she had a thriving business. Soreyda joins the 31,533 immigrant entrepreneurs contributing to the booming U.S. fashion industry. She hosts a radio show, runs a business, co founded a fashion collective, all while teaching more than 4,000 local designers. She's become a fashion leader, helping the next generation to follow their own dreams. For more stories like this one, visit newamericaneconomy.org/story.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It is a real pleasure for me to be sharing my story. I have done it so many times, but I never get tired of because this issue is so important to me. It's extremely personal. And today, we're going to start from the beginning. I always like to tell my story, my family story, show a few photos that I have from when I was younger. As Dr. Jackson said in the introduction, today is my birthday, and I'm very excited about it. It's my 44th birthday. Um, and I have a few pictures from when I was little. And what that matters to me is because we often forget the people behind our clothes. And I wanted to make it personal. I want you to see that there are human beings over there. They're going through so many different horrible situations, and when we see them in the news becomes another story, and then we go to the next one and their lives haven't changed, they're still the same. And people who have dreams, who have talents, who have aspirations, who have such important things they want to say and do, and because of their circumstances they're not able to. So I'm the second of six children. My mother was of indigenous ancestry, and my father was of Garifuna ancestry, and the Garifunas are indigenous people in Honduras. They're not First Nation. They came to Honduras as part of the slave trade, and they form a group that is very strong with the language and a very strong culture. And so that's my heritage. Both of my parents have passed ever since I moved to the States, and my siblings are spread out from different places from the United States, Mexico, Honduras, and Canada. And that is very common for Honduran families to have family members who are far away. My siblings and I haven't been under the same roof for 26 years, so it's been a while, and I hope that one day we all can get reunited. And so that's a short story about my family. And when I started working in the factories, I was 14 years old, like the first slide was mentioning. And I always loved fashion ever since I was very little. I tried to create wearables. I was just very drawn to it. And when I was 13, I entered a sewing academy, which are schools in Honduras. They're focused on training people on garment construction and understanding fabrics and using sewing machines. And that's with the purpose of training them for later being able to get employment in factories. And I always loved sewing, so I never thought much of it. I had to do what I had to do. I come from a very poor family, and that was just something that was available, and I did it. And like I say, it was life. And I didn't think much of it. And when I was 22 years old, I met who is now my husband. He's an archaeologist and he has done research in Honduras for many years. And we got married and moved to the States. So my story, it can be a little bit uncommon from a Latinx immigrant because I was very young, just basically, just met this hot archaeologist, got married, and there we go to the States. And so I didn't have really any other plans than just coming here and being with him. Um, so I think that it really is important in how my life if he has developed, and also being connected to him. I have been able to access people and opportunities that so many other people who come here often don't get to. And so that's what is so important for me to be telling the story about the people in Honduras, because there are many other immigrants with very similar stories like mine, women who have worked in factories for years and years, and after they're so tired and also undead, because a lot of the factory workers move from the countryside to the cities, and when they're there they find themselves trapped in this system of economic instability, and so they take the decision of immigrating somewhere else to look for a better life. And so we can go to the next slide, please. And so also we're gonna start with another beginning of the history of the textile industry in the United States. We all know the story of cotton being the king. In the 1800s, Britain, the most powerful nation in the world, relied on American cotton for over 80% of essential industry raw material. English textile mills accounted for 40% of Britain exports. One-fifth of Britain's 22 million people were directly or indirectly involved with cotton textiles. So it was big. Let's just say so many different industries were built around facilitating the growth and exportation of cotton. Next slide, please. And of course, we can't speak about cotton in the United States without speaking about slavery. Cotton was the leading American export from 1803 to 1937. Cotton production and export made possible for the U.S. to become one of the world's biggest economical powers. Cotton trade was extremely profitable in the 1800s because of the use of slave labor. And there were so many different elements that facilitated for the fashion industry to develop in the United States and all around the world. And one of those was technologies and also social issues, just different changes that made it possible for the industry to be what it is today. I'm looking through my notes here to provide some more information on what the slides that we have over there. But one of the things that really helped, it was the flying shuttle that was invented by John Kay in 1733, which improved, it was a big improvement for the looms that enable weavers to weave faster. So there was access to fabric that it was way faster than it used to be. And in 1742, cotton mills were first opened in England. In 1790, invention of the sewing machine by Elias Howe and Thomas Saint. And that is a huge improvement and facilitated the production of clothing and made it possible for many people to be able to be involved in the industry. And also another very important thing that I love to talk about is in the invention of size clothing patterns by Ebenezer Butterick. Yes, the Butterick patterns that we still are able to get in the fabric stores today. And those were invented in 1863. And obviously that made possible to have standardized sizing that facilitate faster production of clothing. And then many people can purchase clothing without having to have it customized to them, because traditionally you will have to go to a tailor or a seamstress and they will measure you and they will make garments for you. Some parents or family members that are able to sew also did that, but with having access to mass production and standardized sizing, um, that it just was kind of obsolete and made it much affordable for people to have a variety of styles and colors of clothing. And also the women's labor force participation pushed the industry farther than it was. And one big event that it really it changed the history of the United States was World War One, because it made possible for women to be very engaged in the labor force in the United States. The factories were open and they had to be creating products, items that were needed for war. And so that also gave women economical power. And some way or another, it had some influence in the suffragist movement, because now with economical power and you have a voice, you can speak louder, you're independent, and you are stronger and willing to ask for your rights. Another event, and after the abolition of slavery, the production of cotton and having to pay people to actually, work, and made it more expensive, and that pushed with the pushed the idea of having options other than cotton for the fashion industry. And that one of the events that happened was the invention and mass production of synthetic fabrics. And nylon was invented in 1935 by DuPont Chemicals, and it was introduced in the market in 1938. And in 1941, polyester was invented by a chemist at the Calico Printers Association. And we still have calico prints and around everywhere. In 1959, expandex was added to the synthetic fabric landscape. And one thing that I want to mention is that there was another very important textile to the another fiber that was very important to the garment industry in the United States and to the textile industry, and it was hemp. And that was made illegal in 1937. And Kentucky was one of the largest producers of hemp in the United States. And another thing that also changed the industry was the introduction of the wrap casual clothes, because women are in the workforce, and the traditional clothes, the more restraining, those were out of fashion, and just something comfortable that it facilitated working was just more popular. And one of the designers that was leading on these changes was Coco Chanel. She's well known for starting wearing pants and casual style tops that are similar to t-shirts. There is a designer and writer that is very, very dear to me, and my fashion Bible is actually this book by her. Her name is Elizabeth Hayes, and it's called Fashion is Spinach. She became an activist against mass production and promoter of style. She believed that it is more important to be able to show your style and wear clothes that represent your personality and your character, and not just go with what everybody was wearing. And I highly recommend that book if you want to learn a little more about how mass production became so big in the United States. And actually, the United States is considered to be the country that really developed and mastered the system of clothing mass production. And there is so many issues that are related to the fashion industry that have changed history. And workers, women's, and children's rights are very connected to the fashion industry. One big event that happened, it was the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in New York City in March 25th of 1911. Was the deadliest industrial disaster in the history of the city and one of the deadliest in US history. The fire caused the deaths of 146 garment workers, 123 women and 23 men. The women were mostly young immigrants. Amid the national scandal that followed the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, and resounding calls for change, New York State enacted many of the first significant worker protection laws. The tragedy led to fire prevention legislation, factory inspection laws, and International Ladies Garment Workers Union. And there were another events that happened later on, like different trade agreements that United States became involved with. In Honduras, the country where I'm from, have had a long history of trade with the United States. As you know, maybe not familiar with the fact that bananas come from Honduras very often. You will find in the grocery store still the bananas that are imported from there. And actually, Honduras is the original banana republic, which is a term that is used to describe countries with economic and labor policies that are not very favorable of workers. And another agreement that's very important of on this conversation is the free trade agreement that it basically create policies or um, regulations for exports and trade among many different countries. And another agreement is the General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade that was signed by 23 countries in 1947. The North American Free Agreement that was signed in 1994. It's also called NAFTA. People are more familiar with that name, and involve United States, Mexico, and Canada. And the Dominican Republic Central America Free Trade Agreement, CAFTA, is an agreement between Central American countries, and that is Honduras, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Dominican Republic joined later on. And so I want to make a point that policy is extremely important when it comes to all these issues. There is a bigger story to everything, and that is something that is important for us to look at. We're going to have a quest that you have to go in and participate and just answer these questions. What percentage of clothing do you think was made in the United States in the 1960s? So as I was telling you, there were so many different legislations or policies that were put in place for a period of about 100 years that it really impacted all these trade agreements that were made, and also how labor unions were pushed. In Honduras, the labor unions are persecuted to the extreme. I mean, it's dangerous to be in unions. People get murdered because of it. And Honduras has rate of impunity over 95%. So it's really very dangerous to try to unionize against companies. Let's see what is the result over here of the quest. I'm very curious about this. We're gonna take a few seconds. You can go in, you can join us and let us know what you think there was the percentage in the 60s. And every now and then we'll find like in vintage stores, garments that have the tag that say made by certain unions in different parts of the country. And there were well-made clothing. They're still around. I mean, they have lasted, 50, 60, 70 years. Do we have the results of the quiz? Whatever we're ready, you can move to the next slide, Sid. Okay, I think you can show them the right answer now. Okay. And there's gonna be another quiz that we're gonna ask you to do with us, and it's to look at a garment that you have near you or something that you're wearing if you're able to, and to find out where it was made. So those are the two things that we want to ask you. Another thing I would like to know also is where are you right now? Like where are you watching us from? I think my video is not working, so I'm gonna connect to another source. I'm gonna have to use my phone because yeah, it's my video is not working, but um so I don't know if we were able to show everybody the result of the quiz, but I'm gonna go to the next slide, which is talks about the places where most of the clothing is being made today. And if you see the list of the country, these are countries with um, very high poverty rate and also with labor systems that are not necessarily the most transparent and beneficial for workers. It is not connecting. And so you can see the list over there. And we're gonna go to the next slides that ask you about the clothing that you're wearing or the clothing that you have accessible to you right now, where was made, what country. And one thing also that is related to country of origin, that some garments are made in different places. Like just one single garment could be made in one or two different countries. So there is this part of the industry that also is very impactful of the environment, because clothing, the fabric is made in one place, or the textiles made in one place and moved somewhere else to be cut and moved somewhere else to be assembled. So the garments travel to many different places, but based on what the brand decides or where the majority of the work was done, that's what goes into the label. That's what it tells us where the garment came from, even though it might have been, gone to different places. I hope you can participate in the quiz. And I'm looking here through my notes to go to the next slide and provide with a little more information on the women in the fashion industry. We know the majority of the consumers of the fashion are women. Is really pushed and advertised towards us, and 70% of the people working in the fashion industry are women, and 25% of the people managing or executive positions in the fashion industry are women. So we see the imbalance that is there when so many of us work in the fashion industry. Very few really get to be to the top and making decisions of what is happening and what direction the industry should take. Even though also we consume the majority of it, we have very little saying. And I have a few pictures of people and my slide that are very prominent in the fashion industry, in the companies that are some of the biggest companies in the fashion industry in the world. And H&M, we're familiar with, is a brand that is all over the world, and also Nike and Sarah. And Women's Wear Daily is magazine, a publication that provides insights into what's happening in the fashion industry, and in a way also directs what happens in the industry. We're gonna go to the human cost of the fashion industry. There's so many different issues, and one of the biggest is the labor rights and economic inequality. The demand for cheaper clothing has created systems of exploitation of workers, mostly women and children, all around the world. It has destroyed local economies by allowing the monopolization of products by a few brands. It limits access to the market for independent designers and small manufacturers. And I see that in here in our community, working with different designers, the talent that they have, the passion that they have to work in the fashion industry. But because the control is mainly by major companies, they really, we really can grow our business and develop it into the full potential. And also, it has had mental and physical impacts. It has caused issues of self-esteem and body image issues on people, as many are unable to keep up with the constant changing fashion trends and the ideals of beauty promoted by the industry, has created a culture of consumerism. Another aspect is the environmental impact. The clothing and textile industry is depleting non-renewable resources. The fast fashion industry is cruel to animals and destroys their habitats. The quality and product variety. We were promised that with free trade, we will have more products and variety. But if you go to the department stores, so many of the clothes that are there look so similar from brand to brand to brand. Is very, very much, often the same thing. And so where is all that diversity? Why don't we have so many products that represent the ideas and the concepts and the creativity that we'll have? And it has decreased the quality also. Mass production is focused on profitability, uh, profitability and making products fast as possible, put them in the market so you can sell as much as possible. So quality is put to the side. And then this concept in fashion is, in production overall, this called the race to the bottom. That means that you just have to figure it out to make a product as cheap as possible, no matter what. It doesn't matter who suffers through that process. You just wanted to have it as cheap as possible and have it fast. And it also has limited access to designers, like I mentioned before, because making cheap products takes a lot of money. Um, the term cheaper by the dozen, we're familiar with that. That means if you buy something in bulk and you're able to pay less for individual pieces. And so as independent designers, we can just go and purchase 20,000 yards of fabric or, buy all the materials that we need in bulk. And that makes our products then to be more expensive that was already there in the market. And it's very hard to compete with that. And also because the general public, the salaries really are not matched to what the needs of today's life is. We're not getting paid fair wages. And it's also impacted by cheap labor overseas. That really has a huge negative impact and the wages here domestically. And we go to the next slide, and that is there is also social and cultural impact. Traditional craftsmanship has been pushed out due to the demand for fast production. Cultural appropriation is a common practice by larger brands, and at the same time, indigenous artists are excluded. So I often have discussions with people about what it means to appropriate a culture. And as somebody who has an indigenous background, I love to collaborate with people. I love to share my culture. But when it gets a little bit complicated is when companies just basically take the ideas or take the traditions of certain culture and sell it. And we were to do products and trying to sell it, we don't have access to the market. But as they, have access to marketing and fast production, they're able to profit from something that they don't even respect sometimes. And so that is very frustrating, and it's really hard and painful to watch. And cultural attire has been pushed out by easier access to mass produced clothing. And that happens in developing countries because a lot of the excess clothing that we have in developing countries, sometimes it's shipped to developed countries and, excuse me, vice versa. from developed countries is shipped or to developing countries, and so these garments are taking over the market. The local crafters cannot make items that are, you know, cheap enough to be able to compete with all this imported used clothing. And the objectification of women in the fashion industry happens in factories, the runway, and marketing. And it's we have seen it a million times, how women are used basically as objects to sell a product, and it's changing, thank God. But it's just so spread out, and in developing countries it's still a very common practice to use women's body to sell clothing in a very undignifying way. And racism is also a core of the fashion industry since the beginnings, from the exclusion of models, designers, and other creatives of color to the exploitation of Black and other workers of color. Family separation is also a result of workers that have to go where the jobs are, and it has also impacted international migration and workers, as workers can afford to live with the low wages they get paid. So these two things are very connected, because we see that in developing countries, the the countries that are more engaged in the manufacturing of clothing are countries that are mainly people of color. Um, and we see how companies came, for example, to Honduras. They came, you think they came there with all the good intentions? It's just we just gonna bring our manufacturing here to make these people's lives better. Maybe some did, but I don't think that was the main intention. And the governments facilitate for these companies to set up their operations there, because their GDP goes up. But that doesn't really mean anything for the average person, as that the whole trickle down concept is just not really happening. And so even though our government say, okay, well, we have a higher exports and there's all the industry happening here, the everyday person is not really benefiting from all these type of operations that are happening. So I fuss about it. I say all the bad things, and there's a lot. And it's painful for me at times to even think about it, because, I want things to be better, and I'm tired and I get frustrated at times of what I see and how I have to be screaming aloud all the time about these things. Um, and for better or worse, I honestly have to start feeling way more hopeful now, because before the pandemic, and it's not like it's a good thing that it happens. It's sad, and it's so so devastated. Some days I can't even function. That is happening. But one thing that I find it to be incredible from this experience is that our humanity and our mortality have become just so important, and something that we think about more often than we used to. Um, because life is short and we deserve better. We deserve to look good. I don't doubt about it. That's been always something that humans want to. I mean, I visit a lot of museums, and the beautiful garments that people made thousands of years ago, unnecessarily amazing and complicated. They didn't need to be that complicated, but that is a nature of humans to be able to wanting to create beauty. And so, how can we change the systems? What can you do as an everyday person? As was I was mentioning, policy is extremely important in all this, because there are bigger forces out there making decisions for us, people that we elect to office, to make sure that we are protected and we are provided, and that our work is being appreciated and is contributing to the improvement of society. So get political. It's being political is not a bad thing. Societies operate because of systems, and politics is extremely important. Governments are some of the oldest institutions, the widest spread institutions all around the world, and they have the ability to make our lives better, but we have to demand that to happen. So vote, use the power you vote. Make sure you elect people who really follow through with their promises and do what is best for all of us and not just for a few. That's the purpose of government, is to make sure that the citizens are being cared for. Speak up uh, at home with your family, at school. We could have clothing that was made locally that our teams and local groups, so big groups can wear. That is a possibility. We don't have to be sending all this production overseas. And here in Kentucky, we have the Kentucky Derby, that is one of the biggest fashion events in the world. And I wonder how many designers that live in Kentucky or manufacturers that live in Kentucky actually profit from this huge event. I do want to find that data eventually. I'm curious. At work, with your coworkers, if you're planning an event or if you're talking about anything that's related to clothing, you can start a conversation and find out if people have information about these things. Because yeah, everyday life is hard, and we don't have to be talking about this every day. I have to for the most part, but everyday people, they're not so engaged in the industry, don't have to. But if you ever have the opportunity to educate somebody and provide this information, please do. You never know what that can lead to. On social media, we're lucky to have access to the public, and be able to provide with information to a broader audience at once. I do that a lot. I'm always fussing about things on social media and also sharing the good things that people are doing, because there are so many different efforts all around the world to try to change this. Write about it. This talk came out of an article that I published recently, and that's how Seth found me, and here I am. So you never know what is going to come out of something. And make films about it. We're so big in videos and you being able to see images. So if you have access to technology or people, please participate, and I'm sure that you can make an impact. Use your money. Do research and support companies that follow the best labor environmental practices. Show vintage or pre-owned clothing. We always find amazing clothing and different local vintage stores. Support local artists, crafters, and boutique owners. There are several stores in our hometown. They're owned by local people. That means that money stayed here and help support families and their employees. And so try to support locally owned companies or businesses as much as possible, as well artists. And repair your clothes. Learning to do a stitch or so, it's very fun. There's so many tutorials that you can go and look and learn how to fix something if it breaks, because yeah, we don't have to be throwing away everything. Another important thing that I find that it has changed things for me is to build community. Throughout my work here in Lexington, I have participated in so many different events with so many incredible artists and organizers and people who love this industry, just enjoy clothing, enjoy dressing up, and they want to be a part of it. They're so eager and they're so talented. Some have gone to Parsons in New York, or have studied in Paris, or have studied in Italy. Really incredible people. And it is possible to build community and create change to the fashion industry. And I have experienced it, and it's wonderful. It brings together people from many different backgrounds. I have worked with people over 30 different countries through the events that I have done here in Lexington in the past 15 years or so. So because fashion appeals to everybody, we all wear clothes and we all have an opinion on fashion, even if we say we really don't like fashion. But we make decisions on what we put in our body. So as you know, we are part of fashion. And I want you to see this video that was filmed by some students, Frederick Douglass. under the supervision of Pablo Alcala. He's a film instructor there, and he used to be a photographer at the Lexington Herald Leader. And they filmed this and put it together for a promo for an event that I was organizing in 2020. That was supposed to happen. It had to be postponed because of the pandemic, but we're just waiting for the time to bring it back. And so I want you to see some of the talent and the people that are part of this event. And so what we have in here, and we usually combine different talents, not just clothing, that we have dancers and we have visual artists. So bringing so many different talents and people with different point of views can make such a beautiful thing, like events and runway shows.
Soreyda,
Yes.
I apologize, the video is not working, but we will include that video link in the follow-up to all registrants, if that's okay.
Well, yeah, that's okay. Technical difficulties
Sorry about that.
happen, so apologies for that. Let's go to the next one. And dress up. No, that right now it's a little bit challenging because we have to stay mainly at home, and there is not so many opportunities for us to be up there participating in society as we would like. But it's really rewarding to be able to wear clothes, and not just for show off to others, but it is exciting, and there is something very special about getting dressed and putting yourself out there in the world. So I tell you, never miss an opportunity to wear those beautiful dresses that you have. Don't just let them hang in the closet, or beautiful pants or suits, anything that you want to wear. Try to enjoy it and not worry so much about what everybody will think, or how much does it cost, because sometimes the most beautiful outfits, it can cost almost nothing if it is vintage, if you made it. I'm constantly making clothing for my daughter. She really enjoys clothing, and so I try to nurture that. But yeah, I encourage you to do that. And here in Lexington, with different organizations, I help with costumes and for performances. One of the main organizations that I work with is Casa de la Cultura, that was founded by Monica Calleja and is focused on promoting Latinx culture. And we constantly do performances, and so they always have beautiful costumes. So I get to work with them and helping put put the wardrobe together. And we go to the next slide. Like I was saying before, I'm hopeful. I honestly feel that we're ready to create change of the big scale. That change that is gonna improve our lives, provide us with quality of products, and products that we are gonna hold on for a long time because we appreciate it and enjoy them. I'm really hoping and working towards making the future of fashion creative, sustainable, inclusive, and exciting. There's so much in there for us to enjoy and share with each other. And I feel that the fashion industry has the potential to get so many people out of poverty because it's so it's spread out all over the world. There are millions and millions of people working in this industry in many different places in the world. If we were to change how it is operated, it can really impact the life of so many. And as Dr. King say, threat to justice anywhere, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So we have to work together and try to improve the situation for us, for people everywhere, and for the planet, because this also has a tremendous impact on our environment. And it is time for change. And I hope that you can join me and be a part of it and share your ideas. So share any insights that you might have that you think that will be helpful for us to work to change the situation. Again, thank you so much for being here today. I hope that this has been helpful. And now we're gonna go to the questions. And if you have time and opportunity to chat with us, we will go into the Q&A really quick.
Hi, Soreyda.
Hi, can you see me?
I
Fine?
I can.
Super.
First of all, happy birthday. And
Thank you.
thank you to everyone out there that was submitting questions. For those of you who are wondering who I am and where I came from, I'm the Associate Director of the Gain Center for the Humanities, who are co-sponsoring this event with the UK College of Agriculture. So I've been manning your questions as we've been going. We have some really good ones, Soreyda. So the first one, this was a very hot question because we got a lot of them. Folks would like to know the name of the book that you referenced way early on in the presentation. It was around the when you were discussing the clothing racks.
Yes, it's called Fashion is Spinach. And
Fashion
it's
is
by
Spinach?
Elizabeth Haves. Hose, because my husband is correcting me how to pronounce it. And her last name is spelled Hawes. And it was published first in 1938. It is fantastic. It really is. Like I keep reading it over and over again because it's so good. And she was a designer. She worked in Paris. And what she will do is go and sketch the collections, and then bring it to manufacturers, and they will copy them and mass produce it. And she got to a point that she just really, it was, she just thought that was so wrong. And so she became an activist against all this mass production of clothing.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The next question is coming from Tanya Torp. She writes, Soreyda, you are one of the most thoughtful and prolific designers in the US. Can you talk about something that is truly the experience of many local BIPOC women who, like you, are recognized nationally for their craft, but still forced to continue building a brand locally, particularly when it comes to compensation? For example, people who are asking you to work for free or asking you to reduce your very fair rates.
Yeah, that's very common. It happens. It's very challenging because I dedicate a lot of time to speak about these issues and so many other issues that affect my community. And it is very hard to also be sewing because I have to be physically present there, and sewing is exhausting. It is very tiring. I love it, I enjoy doing it, but it really is very tiring. And also, I have my back is damaged from so many years of working in the industry that I constantly in pain. And so, and then I have to go and speak and participate in events. And I do it because I don't want other people to have to suffer, the things that I suffer in the factories. I look back and think that I spent all my teenage years there. I look at photos of my people my age that were with me in school, and there were all these parties that I never knew about. And so this is very important for me, and I volunteer a lot of time. But it really, we have to start compensating people who are there working towards changing society and improve it for all of us, because in the long term it benefits all of us. And somebody got to do this work, because we forget the things that have impacted us. When things get better, we kind of get comfortable, and we just kind of go on with our everyday lives, and we start losing rights. Before some people are not allowed to vote, and some people can ask for a raise at work because they get fired, and there's nothing they can do about. So this is the impact that being indifferent to the needs of people who speak up and work towards improving the society. That's what happens. And also, you get silenced basically, because if you're not able to operate and function, you're not able to keep these issues in people's minds, and then also promote change. So I'm there with you, Tanya. I want my coins, and I'm appreciative that honestly, the people who have worked for me in this project, that have been so generous, and every sense, it's been like the best gig that I ever got, and they've been so supportive. I'm just very thankful for all that you have done, and please keep it up. I have so many talented friends that I would recommend if you ever need any other speakers.
Um, a couple other questions. I'm going to combine a couple of the questions that we got. So there's been a lot of questions about buying locally. So if you could, it's sort of a two-part. A lot of folks said that when they shop, they see signs that say this is local, but they know just because of the knowledge you've given them or their own background that it's not local. So how do you sort of navigate the folks who are trying to capitalize on the buy local movement but aren't actually local? And then also, how can you find affordable local clothes that are handmade? Because I know expense is something that a lot of our attendees had questions about.
Mhm. Ideally, we didn't have to worry about that. We will just go and buy what we need and not have to think about that. That's what it should be. That we should know the clothes and all the products that we consume are being made under conditions that are benefiting the people who work in these places and are making the things that we need to have a comfortable life. That is what ideally, you know, I would like to see happening. Another thing is we we need to raise the minimum wage. People need to get paid better because asking people to make affordable products, that means it's like, oh, you don't make any profit and sell me this product. Sometimes that's what it feels like because it's like, there's no way that I can make these things cheaper. I can't. There is no way. If you start adding up the custom materials, the time that you put into it, the equipment that you have to buy, it's very difficult for independent artists and designers to be able to compete with products that are in the market. I promise you, we're not becoming millionaires and we're not trying to rip people off of their money. It is very, very challenging. So that's what I advocate for policy, because if we start changing this as a whole, we all can have great quality products and don't have to think about who made it or where they came from. Of course, locally is always best because we maintaining the money within our community. We're keeping these dollars here and we're supporting our local industries. And also in that sense, a message to companies. We want you to, make products, but we want you to also make them in a way that is beneficial for everybody. Because honestly, I don't want all these corporations to disappear. Corporations have done incredible work and being efficient in the way they produce items. They also have the capital to create all these wonderful things that we're able to use. What I would like to see for is stop focusing so much on shareholders and profiting from people and make positive change in the world. Because what purpose you have to have all this money, the hoarding all this money, when the rest of the world just going to flames? Like, what is the point of that? So that's what we need to advocate. And yeah, supporting local artists. If you see something that is made here, is made locally, yeah, support that if you can. And I don't know what to do about people being dishonest. It's just definitely up to them. That is not very nice thing to do.
We have one question. If you can explain how NAFTA affects the fashion industry.
Yeah, it's because trade policies. If you have these systems that facilitates countries to trade, you have to sit down with governments and make decisions on many different things. In Honduras, for example, infrastructure, so many things have to change in order to facilitate the international trade. I was born in the largest port in Central America. It's called Puerto Cortes. And the reason why it's the largest port is because in the late 1800s, banana companies established their operations in there. And so in order to move the bananas, they created all this infrastructure. They basically built this island where all the boats come and load the bananas, which is actually below sea level. So it's in danger because climate change. So, and then you have organizations, businesses, governments sitting down, creating policies, and the one with the most money has the strongest voice, right? So we have these policies that are benefiting the companies, but the laborers, the workers, they don't have a voice in this whole operation, and it's happened all around the world. So yeah, that's how these international trades impact the fashion industry and many other industries. Whatever there is international trade, yeah, definitely the fashion industry is being impacted because it's a huge, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's very, very big.
So that's actually a perfect segue into what I think will be our last question, because we are about out of time. But we've had several questions about folks who are wondering how best to recycle their clothes that are either beyond repair or they haven't quite yet learned the skills to repair them. And I know they mention a lot of charities or organizations that, might end up not using it in a responsible way. So we want to make sure, it's environmentally sustainable. So what advice would you give?
Well, if you can take it to resellers, or some artists often take items because they reuse them. A friend of mine shared a video with me of a company that's making bricks to build houses out of clothing. So there are different initiatives all over the world of reusing garments or use garments in the best way possible. Just look what is up there. Ideally, it will be great to have something like that in here in town, that we can make sure that things are not ending up in landfills. So yeah, that can be an initiative. We create a local group to reuse garments and just share ideas how we can do that more efficiently.
That's great. Thank you so much. And that sounds incredible. I would never think of bricks being built like out of clothes, but that's great. So I am apparently responsible for closing us out.
Okay.
So I just want to take a minute for our attendees who are still here to thank a few people. So first of all, I have to thank Dr. Melinda Price, who is the director of the Gaines Center for the Humanities and a faculty member in the law school. This idea for Gaines to collaborate with different units across campus was her brainchild. So I'm so grateful that she continues to have these amazing ideas and have brought together this event. I also want to thank Seth Reichert from the College of Agriculture, who was our 100% on the ground person and got all this coordinated. And then of course, Dr. Vanessa Jackson from the College of Agriculture, who introduced you, Soreyda, and spoke at the beginning. And finally, of course, the incomparable Soreyda. You were just incredible. I think you've given everybody so much to think about. You had the slide with your contact information on, but you also, I've seen you've got a great web presence too. So hopefully for the questions we weren't able to get to, we can continue these collaborations moving forward. And then for any folks that might have to leave early or had to come late and didn't catch the beginning of it, this has been recorded and it will be uploaded to the YouTube channel for the UK Gaines Center for the Humanities. So you can watch it in full there, and we'll send an email out to all of the attendees to let them know when that's posted. So thank you so much, Soreyda. We are just so incredibly grateful for the time and energy that you give to the Lexington community and to us tonight. So thank you so much and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great one. Take care and be safe, please.